Thank you, Professor. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Alhamdulillah. Since the time is running out and we have, of course, with such a lucid galaxy of academicians, we need to have more time. So without wasting it, I would request the Honorable Chairman to welcome the panelist, please. Chairman, sir.
Yes, sir. Uh, my dear colleagues, today we have an honor to have with us four great experts in the field of their own. And today we are going to have a webinar on a real challenge, COVID-19, a real challenge or a phenomenal opportunity. We have with us Professor Dr. Muhammad Mamoon Habib from the School of Business, Independent University, Bangladesh, and a visiting faculty, visiting scientist of the UTS US. Professor V.K. Gangadharan is another expert with us today. He is from National Institute of Technology, Karnataka, Surat Kal. Dr. Sheena, an associate professor of School of Management, National Institute of Technology, Karnataka, is with us. And also we have an opportunity to have another young gentleman with us, Dr. Rajesh Vishwanathan. He is assistant professor of the Department of International Business, School of Management, Pondicherry University. So, sir, on behalf of the Early Girls University, on behalf of the Commerce Department, and on my own behalf, I welcome you all to this panel discussion today. And I hope that the discussion today will be helping us to find out the challenges that we are going to have in the time to come, because COVID-19 is going to have a long-term impact on the economic system. So I welcome you all and request you to initiate the discussions.
Well, at the outset, I would like to thank all the panelists to choose such a vibrant topic, which has, of course, people, 40 lakh people almost ailing across the world, and there is a death of around 2,70,000 in total, which is, of course, a challenge, a serious threat, because the vaccine is not being, still not in sight. And on the other hand, it's environment, and of course, this opportunity itself of meeting such a lucid galaxy of people from across the nation and across the world is an opportunity. So this is something, a mix of threat as well as challenge as well as opportunities. So I would request the panelists to please break in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm privileged that I got the invitation through the Professor Noor Wali Khan. And basically, it's a vibrant topic that Professor Imran already mentioned. And we are honored that we are getting this kind of platform to discuss about the issue. I think you already noticed that today our discussion is that COVID-19 a real challenge or phenomenal opportunity. I'd like to start because my specialization on supply chain management. So I'm taking care of the COVID-19 as a supply chain disruptions. If you look very carefully, the COVID-19 affect economic impact. Disruptions are gradually being felt everywhere, from ports to factories, storehouses, delivery channels. With the passing of every single day during the worldwide, countrywide shutdown imposed to the curb to the spread of the COVID-19. And not only the disruption is also evident in the rural farm level, where the people are not getting the fair prices of their produce. You know, this is a situation that we are noticing in all over the world. I just make sure the one important key point. I think the other panelists, they can start by this one. I like to start by the Dr. Tedros, the Director General of the WHO. He mentioned that, yes, there's lots of challenge, but COVID-19 has taken so much from us, but it has also given us a unique opportunity. What kind of opportunity? To put aside our differences, to break down the barriers, to see and seek the best in each other, lift our voices for health for all during the one world together at home. So what I say that this is the Dr. Tedros he mentioned. We are getting some privilege that at least we can stay home, we can think about our society, our family, our core family members. So this is one kind of opportunity for us. And now you see the scenario in the Bangladesh, whatever the India, whatever the Pakistan, whatever the USA, the Europe, the same scenario. So that means we are the one world. We are not the different. And we are the same scenario you are facing in our personal life, in our professional life. Everybody is working from the online platform, which is not very common phenomena. So we are doing this one. So I'd like to recommend the other panelists to start to discuss by this opportunity, please.
Shall I take it?
Please, 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 please.
Sure, sir. Please.
This Dr. K.V. Gangadharan from NITK Surathkal, as a chairman mentioned. So it's an honor and a privilege to be in this group, and talking to people from AMU is a real honor. And what I look at it as an opportunity, the COVID-19 lockdown is a real opportunity for an academician to learn, to teach. What we thought is virtual is becoming real. So what is virtual, we thought it as a virtual, is becoming real. So that is a paradigm shift. So how do we look at education? I will just focus on education part first, then about some technology, maybe when it comes to the next round. That's how I thought of doing it. So first part was, can I be providing an experiential learning, which I normally do it in my classroom and the laboratory for the topics which I cover, in a virtual environment, wherein we started looking at, is there a possibility of creating experiential learning in the virtual environment? Fortunately, we had started long back some concept called Virtual Lab, which was also funded and sponsored by Human Resource Ministry under NMEICT mission. So that we put forward to this time in a bigger way. And we saw 23-fold usage. Can you imagine? From 100 to 2300 is a kind of usage change. So there, the concept was to provide laboratory at the learner's pace, learner's place, and learner's period. So if you are looking at it as a 3P lab. So how do I provide experience or experiential learning to my student by making sure that he sitting at his place at his time and his pace, a slow learner getting a slow pace and a fast learner getting a fast pace can be provided. That is one opportunity we found in this lockdown. Even though during the other times, it was started 2010, it is initiated, but we went full on deployment by 2015, but still now it was picking up very, very slow. But now we see we are able to do it in a much better way, because we are able to make it in such a way that it penetrates to every university, most of the universities in India. So that is one part. And the second part which we found is, can I use my research equipments available and the resources which is scattered, my human resources scattered in this COVID-19 lockdown? Probably in the next round, I'll also speak about that. So with these remarks, it's an opportunity for an academician to provide experiential learning, which otherwise we thought as a virtual, now it is becoming real. With these opening remarks, I would like to push it to the next panelist for his or her.
Professor Gangadharan, can I just pose one issue, and that is, don't you think that it could be a very good experiential learning for us? It could be a very good opportunity for us, the most fortunate class of the nation. Don't you think that it is going to enhance the divide between the have and have not section of the society, where the have section of the society will have all these privileges and opportunities in terms of learning from somebody, an experienced person like you or somebody from Harvard and Oxford, while those who don't have the access to these facilities, how do they manage? And this is going to lead a wider divide.
Yeah, good. That is a right point which you have put forward. And I find that again an opportunity, because when there is an increase in have and have not, so we will have a pull to make the have not to come to have. So that means it is giving us one more opportunity. So because those who are not able to come online and do all this, we now able to understand among my own class of students, out of 83 students, when we did a survey, we saw that within India, there are around 33% who are not really fully connected and who can come online and attend a video class. So they are able to do an audio streaming or whatever I send, they are able to take. So now the policymakers can very well go in and say that, look, we have a experiential learning from this pandemic. Let us make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to get into, even if, for God forbidden, not to have any such pandemic again or a difficulty again, but can we think on that ground, can close the have and have not gap using this itself?
Shall I take it up?
Oh, sure, please.
Thank you, sir. So a very good morning to all the dignitaries present here, the Vice Chancellor, the Dean, the Faculty of Commerce, Professor Imran Salim, the Chairman, the Department of Commerce, Professor Nawab Ali Khan, and of course, Dr. Musa Khan, Assistant Professor, for inviting me to be a panelist for today's function. A very good morning to the other panel members also, Professor Mamoon Habib from Bangladesh Independent University, Professor K.V. Gangadharan from NIT Karnataka, and Professor Rajesh Vishwanathan from Pondicherry University. A very good morning to all the listeners too, and I hope all of you are keeping safe and healthy in your respective homes. Ramadan Mubarak to all of you, and here's wishing you peace during this holy month of Ramadan. So we are all here together today to speak about whether the COVID-19 is actually a real challenge or a phenomenal opportunity. Now, to go along the lines of what Professor Gangadharan said, I would also say that we would rather have to look at this as an opportunity, even though we know that, and every other day we talk about this as a challenge. So let me give my opening remarks to this. Extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures for even mundane things. Now today, thanks to this virus, we are in the midst of an international fora, sitting in our own private spaces for a discussion on a very essential subject over the virtual platform. Now here we are trying to understand the impact that this pandemic, COVID-19, is making in our lives in general, and more specifically on the career graphs of our first-timers or our ongoing students and our university students who are planning to resume their studies of choice subjects. Now this happens between the times when we have witnessed to close a human life, just as what you said, Professor Salim, that in spite, we know that it is a fact that we are witnessing a loss of human life, and it is, and a major part of the global humanity chooses to remain inside their homes, and that has brought a lot of problems in the economy, and it has led to ancillary impressions of lockdown, trickling down on the economic, the social, the emotional fabric of every strata of people in an unprecedented manner, which are raising self-doubt, just like what you said, Professor, of an uncertain future. So we are all living in a life of uncertainty right now. Now, what is it that we can do? Now, are we going to look at this as a challenge every day, or shall we also start looking at it, start tweaking by looking at it at a different point as to what best can we do about it? Now, did someone actually say that the human race did fail, F-A-I-L, to recognize the gravity, this present unseen tormentor, quote unquote, COVID-19 could be affecting our generation now? Now, even if it is true, isn't our most venerated late president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, had once said, a famous expansion of FAIL, that is, first attempt in learning. And I feel that this is very, very right at this point of time to say. It is more than relevant today. Even though it has come with a very heavy price to livelihoods of populations across the globe. Now, honestly, there cannot be any best plan right now while facing a challenge of this magnitude. Now, under this circumstance, when a microorganism is outsmarting all of us and forcing us to keep physical distancing, significant alteration in every aspect of our education ecosystem is a natural consequence. We know how our students are suffering right now. We know how we are suffering right now with the way that we have to deal with our students, with our classrooms and our schedules. Now, it already has forced us to sidestep the academic calendar by a couple of months. And it is a crucial juncture for most of our aspiring youngsters. And now we know that they, their families, all of us are in utter distress about what does the huge future hold for all of us. Now, but does that give us a liberty to be staring at it as a great setback? Or shouldn't we be required to be displaying a more balanced behavior? So I hope in the discussion that we're having today, we will come up with some solutions as to how can we face this challenge and how can we transform this challenge into what we call as a phenomenal opportunity. So should we not be facing up to this challenge by creating more prudent use of the technology at our disposal? And shouldn't we be pursuing our goals, our academic goals as teachers, students, and administrators in campuses in a slightly different way? I think this should pose more as an educative role for us as well, even like with the students. So with this, I would like to pass on to the next panelist. These are my opening remarks for today's discussion, sir.
Thank you, Sheena. You really, worked in challenge vis-a-vis opportunities seamlessly. I would request Rajesh to please have some comments, and then we have a second
Thank you, sir.
interaction.
Good morning, sir. And at the outset, I would like to thank Vice Chancellor, Chairman, Dean, for giving me an opportunity to share my ideas during this particular session. So, well, moving on to the first part, an year back, we would have never even dreamt of having such a discussion on a webinar. Generally, we will be, if such a topic is there, we will be meeting in person, face to face. So, the COVID-19 pandemic across the globe is turning out to be an unprecedented challenge. With this sudden shift from classroom for across the globe, sir, I hope my audio is audible.
Sure.
Yeah.
Please, very comfortable.
Yeah. So with the sudden shift from this classroom in many parts of the globe, some are wondering whether this adoption to online will it really continue and will it really be productive. So one basically I teach behavioral science. So my view of seeing this is from a different angle altogether. Now students, we have changed their routine lifestyle. Okay, especially the routine lifestyle in the sense daily coming from home to classroom or from hostel to classroom, they are confined to their homes. So in such a scenario, one of the most important thing is that certain case there may be a lethargy being developed or there may be a break, and some people they get into depression. So first part is we need to get or maintain that emotional connect. One of the most important thing we should understand is that students routine cycle is changed. So when the routine of class is been involved, I mean like going out of track, student has to just step out of the bed and he just sits in the front when it comes to the classroom. So the challenge is to ensure that they don't go off the track. First, we have to make them understand the current global scenario. Second, a student needs to be counseled and given an emotional support to ensure that they are engaged with us. So we may be having a routine class on a day-to-day basis, but then when it comes to the reality part, where it should not be like a mere lecturing. Rather, we should get the students to the comfort zone and then keep proceeding ahead. So this is one thing. Another main challenge, what like Professor Imran Salim had asked, that is of haves and have-nots. It's one of the issue even I had faced while having classes with our students. Almost around 35 to 40% of students were not able to access to the internet part. Okay, where they were not able to afford to. So this is one of the main challenge technically which we have to overcome. Then coming to the delivery part, which I think we will be discussed, we can have in the online discussion part. How do we deliver and how to make the delivery more interactive? That is, we have to make the students get adapted to the current scenario. That is, they should not get a feel that yes, they are just confined to their room, or get to a feel that they are completely, get a feel that they're out of the system. They should have the feel that they are still continuing the classroom. So whereby we should have a more interactive sessions. With this opening comment, with this opening statements, I'll pass it on to the next, and as we go about further. So main thing I would stress on is that as all the faculties, one, we should make sure that an emotional connect should be built up, and that should be maintained. Yes, sir. I pass it on.
Mr. Mamoon, your microphone is off. Please switch it on.
So thank you so much. Can I continue?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
please.
I'd like to start from that. Professor Gangadharan mentioned about the online learning, distance learning. So I'd like to clarify these issues with respect to Bangladesh perspective as well as the US perspective. As I'm connected with the University of Texas Arlington as a visitor scientist, so I'm involved with the research project with the lab. You know, they are using the Microsoft Team as a virtual connectivity. And I'm from Bangladesh. I'm supervised the research project. I'm working with the research student. So this is very common platform I'm doing the last 5 years. So several times I maybe go to the US, but this is not for a long time. So they are doing this one by the Microsoft Team, which is one of the our online platform. And now come to our situation in our country, Bangladesh. You know that when the lockdown started in our country, the public universities stopped their face-to-face classes. They stopped. And private university, they launched the online learning by using the Zoom, by using the Google Meet, Hangout, something like that. Unfortunately, University Grants Commission, Bangladesh, they stopped this kind of online learning program in the private sector, private university. And then it was stopped for the 1 month. And then private university, they placed this issue to the government and ministry and education ministry. They take the initiative in the last week, and they come to the conclusion that yes, private university, they can continue this one online learning. They can take the exam, they can take the quiz, they can take the lecture. Everything is possible, but they have to ensure that at least that the 80% students availability in the class. And I like to share with you. There is the other university, those did the online learning in our country. As they mentioned in the professors, they mentioned even the online learning classes, suppose if they use that Google Meet, more than 90% students they are attending. Even in the face-to-face classes, sometimes they couldn't get this kind of attendance. It seems to be that what the students they mentioned, during the lockdown, when they're staying in the home, they're too much bored. And this is a very boring time. And this is a time when they're getting some chance to talk to someone. But the online learning, they prefer the privilege to come and at least they discuss something with the class teachers and the other friends. And not only that, one of my professor, he said, once a day I surprised in my class, evening class, which MBA class, the attendance is 96%, only those 2 students they left. And I'm surprised, I never get 96% student in the evening class, MBA class, in my whole teaching life. So that is something, the paradigm shift, what the professor already mentioned. So that is something what we are getting by this kind of lockdown situation, COVID-19 pandemic impact. And not only that, yes, we assume that face-to-face learning is the best, no doubt. But when there is no option, then we have to go to the next stage. But if you could not allow the online learning, then how will we continue our education system? I just give some other phenomena in our education system. In Bangladesh, if you look back at English medium school, they are continuing their online learning. And that English medium school, you just think that the age is like the 5 years, 6 years, 8 years kids. They are doing this one in the Zoom classes very successfully. And our government, they're taking the initiative that for government schools, there is some of the video about the classroom video that will be demonstrated in the one television channel. So there is one television channel is that now is the place for this one, distance learning. It is not like the directly face-to-face, it's not interactive, but there is a video they are demonstrating in the television channel. And then any part of our country, if they have a television, they can see and they can visualize, they can come to the like discussion. And the next one is that Professor Rajesh and Dr. Sinha also mentioned this one. Yes, our lifestyle change. You look, now earlier, in this year, I had a few conferences. So all conferences stopped. Now they moved to the like this stage, webinar stage. So now they're online, all kind of conference going on. So you see the changing. Once a time, we never accept this online, this kind of conference. Now we have to accept it. So we have to change the mindset. I use the one term, change management. Now we need the mindset to change the management. It will come from our academics people, for the educated people. Then it will move to the general people. And secondly, you look very carefully what the professor mentioned, that our emotional connectivity. If you ask myself, how many hours we are spending with our kids in the part day when in the working time, only very few hours we are spending with the kids. But now we are getting the long time with the kids. Our family members, they get the long time. And some of them, they are doing the interaction by our phone, by the video chat with the relatives and something. So it is also the social bonding is creating. Sometimes we are too much robot, we are too much mechanical, and we forget that we are also social human being. But I think now the people, they can understand. And if you look very carefully, the lockdown situation in our subcontinent, the government, they're trying to keep the people inside of the home. But people, they love to go outside. So they're very frustrated when they stay for a long time in the home. So look the scenario that we understand that sometimes it's very important. But when we're on the outside, all the whole day, we never think in that way. So I think that is also what I said earlier, mindset changing. Now you have the new rethinking, and I would say that use the term the paradigm shift. And our social bonding, our family bonding, our lecture, our conference, our research, our thinking, we are in one platform in the world. I believe that this is the way that we can think. This is the COVID-19, that we have some opportunity for us, so that we can think the positive side of that one. Thank you.
Sir, I would just like to add on.
Yeah, please.
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Actually, speaking from two different angles. Number one, that is with regards to the advantage of virtual learning. It is more flexible. We can look from two different angles. One, we are having a live platform where you are able to have the direct interaction. But this is possible when the students are confined to say 60 to 100. But when it is of recorded and kept and we upload the video, student has more flexibility to use it, number one. And as per the research, it shows that almost around 70% it has been more successful. Okay, so where students can, I mean, like say for example, even if you take the case of routine classroom, a person may have a doubt, a student may have a doubt. At times, he may not ask the faculty to repeat the same topic, or if he's not clear, they may try to skip off. Okay, so in this particular case, student has a facility to rewind, relearn, and the percentage of grasping is more as compared to the routine class, number one. Number two, here an opportunity for the faculty with this, as we're changing from the routine chalk and board to virtual classroom, it really gives a place where we can share our expertise across the globe. Okay, from two different angles, I'll talk this one. Let's say, for example, I want to invite a faculty from NIT or from Aligarh to Pondicherry University. The faculty will be thinking twice the distance to be traveled, time taken, and the number of hours he or she has to complete once he is back to. So he may, at the most, they try to skip. But this platform, they have an advantage where we can just fix an appointment or fix a time, and faculty can just share their ideas virtually. Number one, this is one of the main advantage we have. Second, I would like to talk with regard to one of the program which Harvard University has started. So where they were focusing with regard to, they had launched about a series of free courses, and Professor Tarun Khanna had come out with a course, Entrepreneurship in Emerging Economies. It was surprising that 3,70,000 students had registered for the course. Now with this we can understand today students are looking forward to learn, not only students, even employees. So same way, this is an opportunity where our faculties can adapt to virtual learning and can develop further. This is what I would like to put across, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, shall I take next?
Yeah, please.
Sure,
please.
sure.
Yeah. Now, from the virtual learning environment, before COVID, after and during COVID and after COVID. So before COVID, we need to force people to use this virtual environment. But during COVID, it become natural. It become a natural choice. So we made virtual into real. Then now after COVID, how are we going to make use of this opportunity, which we already explored? So that is the next point, which I thought we should mention in this panel discussion, because once all of our faculty members, even though hesitantly, have come forward towards a virtual mode of teaching, now they are comfortable. Now, most of the time, normally lectures or faculty members spend on providing what information already available in the textbook or the research paper in the classroom. Now that can go as a slightly on the flipped mode. So what we regularly do in a classwork will go as a video tutorial or an online mode, which the learner will do it at his or her time, pace, and period, that is place. So it could be the hostel or it could be the home, then come back to the class. Whatever we have, the higher objective, Bloom's taxonomy, higher objectives can be delivered in the classroom. So this COVID lockdown will enable us to be ready for flipping the class. By flipping the class, what we regularly do it in the class, the student will do or learner will do at home, and what they regularly do at home, which is normally the homework, will be in the class, so that an expert teacher will be available. When I made this statement to my students, they made a funny statement saying that, sir, that's what we are regularly doing. We are supposed to sleep in the home, we do it in the class, and they had already flipped the mode. I mean, jokes apart, when we look at this, hopefully the COVID experience, the lockdown experience for an academician should enable us to provide that flipped mode of learning. We should be able to give richer content, much richer content, much richer experience to the learners, because we normally have been explaining things. Now we should be able to make them experience things. So I quickly will show you, if I'm allowed to share a screen, I'll just quickly show you a screen. Let me see. Yeah, I am able to do it quickly. Yeah, I hope you are able to see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, normally, if the same topic has to be covered in a classroom environment, of course, it is from technology domain. I'm sorry, I did not have anything to put right away from commerce, but it's on a technology domain. These equations, etc., if I have to make my student experience, it is going to be hard topic. Whereas if I can make something like this, or maybe in another environment wherein I create some simulation, but it is not just simulation, there is a math engine working behind, the concepts are clarified, then this provides an opportunity for a student to get a real experience of the concept. So we felt this COVID should give us the opportunity for flipping the class in a regular sense by the teachers. So from experiential learning, providing experiential learning in the COVID time, converting that into a flipped mode of education. And we are always saying that peer learning and classroom physical space is, we are not saying no to it, but it can be enriched. It can be enriched by this kind of activity. That is my second remarks. So I will pass it to the next speaker.
Can I just make one observation? I'll take the liberty to introduce AMU. I'm sure that all of you, the panelists, come from a very niche institute or a university. AMU has a peculiarity of still being the cheapest in the world, I believe. We are in a position to provide our student, so it's damn cheap. I'm sure that it is the cheapest in the world. And therefore, it attracts a lot of students coming from a very poor background. Maybe some of them do not have a 2 times meal. So how are we going to see? I mean, I just seek your advice and wisdom that how shall we address that segment of the society which may not have a smartphone at the hostel, which may not have enough access. So in that case, if he is not able to access the things available on the YouTube or in the webinar, then he would even be more disconnected in the class while taking up the Bloom's taxonomy. So my point was that there is a segment in the society, especially coming to the institutions like AMU, where we have a very significant number as a first-time learner. I'm sorry, Sheena, I'm keeping you waiting, but this is a very peculiar challenge, and that need to be taken care of by the nation, because otherwise it is going to be a national wastage of resources, manpower resources, which is very significant. And in the wake of just adapting the online teaching, perhaps somewhere we might disconnect from one section of the society, which may not be a very desirable thing. Your observations, please.
Good. Every time I'm able to see you are enriching the discussion by putting forward a right question. So thank you for that. Now, why did we provide food at a lower cost? Why did we provide a vehicle at a lower cost or a concessional travel? So we understood there is a need for it. So now
Exactly.
the next need is going to be providing a computing device to every learner become the need. It will be like a ration. It will be like the basic requirement of a learner will become this. So along with the low fee, low money for the food, cost for the food, the universities will also provide the learning device or a device with connectivity. And
That was my point, sir. In fact, that was my point.
That becomes the philanthropy for the next time.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sheena, you wanted to say something?
Yes, sir, certainly.
Sure.
Going in line with what Professor Gangadharan was saying about, and of course what Professor Mamun had said about the kind of technology that we are exposed to right now. We are, of course, enriched by a lot of classrooms. We're talking about Google Meet, we're talking about Google Classrooms, Microsoft Teams, and so on. There are indeed a lot of opportunities that are open to us. We talk about NPTEL. Maybe our students have not really explored them much, but now is the right time for them to explore all these possibilities, these resources. We have a large number of repositories where they can find out what is in store there for them to learn. Now, just as what you said, sir, Dean, sir, you were saying that there could be a lot of challenges for students who could be disconnected from this kind of world. Now, yes, it is very true. I feel that opportunities bring along with them the baggage of buts, difficulties, not possible, a lot of other negative vibes as well, which is very, very common, which is something which is really understandable, and that even we do that. All of us feel that way. Now, given the expanse of our country in terms of geography and population, gaps are an expected sequel. We know that there would be a lot of blocks, there would be a lot of repercussions because of this pandemic. Now, especially in the core areas like infrastructure, in the areas of hardware, software penetration, a lot of them. Now, there is also issues in opportunities in the urban-rural divide, just like what you just said right now, sir. Maybe some students might be so disconnected that might not be knowing what is next.
Very true. One of the attendees has raised this point. What about the rural and urban divide? Ambu Sharma. Yes, please. Yes, Sheena.
No, actually, to this particular student who has raised this, I was just reading through a couple of articles a few days back, and I saw that there has been an upsurge in internet usage in the rural areas as well. Around 40% of the internet usage in the rural areas have gone up, which is a good sign. Now, they might not be actually using it for educational purposes, but slowly with, always we say necessity is the mother of invention. So obviously, when there is a necessity arises, of course, everybody out there, our administrators out there, the government out there would have to give us all those facilities which which should cater to the rural areas as well. But now it is a positive sign that there is an increase in internet usages in the rural areas. So keeping in mind all those challenging times, there is one particular saying that Dr. Kalam has always, now he was always under the impression that challenging times require creative minds, like all of you, sir, all of you out there in the panel. So that he says that difficulties in your life do not come to destroy you, but to help realize your hidden potential and power. And let difficulties also know that you too are difficult. So difficulties should also know that we are difficult, and of course we will come out of all these difficulties. So sir, I feel that we should consciously refrain from detailing challenges like bandwidth, buffering, audio video hiccups, and all those time-tested arguments of insufficiencies of the virtual world over the real one. And let us also not try to position one over the other. Instead, let us make a genuine alternative under the pressing health scare, so that we can still remain academically energized like how we are right now. See, in spite of all those things that are happening out there, the AMU came out with a webinar series which is giving a lot of good solutions to a problem like this. And I'm sure that this is happening all around the world, and different kinds of consequences can also be equally explored. And sir, in the concluding remarks, maybe I can just give you a few recommendations, which I feel I'm usually specialized in marketing area. So a few things which I feel I can put down in the closing remarks, sir. So
yeah.
I would like to close.
Dr. Sheena and
Yes,
Professor Imran, I'd like to add the one thing as the one attendant is asking the question, rural and urban area. You know, we got this question when you were planning to start the online learning in our country. And then we did some survey. And based on the survey, we noticed that no student, none of the students they mentioned they have the difficulties to use that online, any kind of virtual, any kind of mode of teaching. But our faculty members, some of the faculty members, they denied to continue this online program, and most of them the senior professors. And this is the one of the thing. And they mentioned the senior professor. They mentioned they happened in the training program, 1 month training program. And then we come up with the discussion, final finding was that just we need a few hours, 1 hour, 2 hours, just hands-on experience is enough. And then by the conclusion, the professor, they agreed, it's possible. If you do some training program, it's possible to do. But what I said that none of the students they mentioned they're facing these difficulties. I just add another point so they can think. You know, there is some of the like our pre-thinking or mindset. Our mindset is that Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, these areas, subcontinent people, they are very poor. Their economic condition very the poor level if you compare the UK and USA. And in terms of everywhere, they are below the standard. This is our pre-thinking, I would say, use the term. But unfortunately, I always mention that now this COVID-19, they explode this one. How about the health system in the USA? How about the health system in the UK? If the population of like India is anywhere in the world, like UK and USA, they never survive.
Yes.
I again use the term that if the subcontinent people is staying in the UK and USA, they cannot survive in the health system. So it not means that we are very under the standard level. Last night, I had another Facebook live interview. You know, that interview was taken from the UK. The host, he's in connectivity, and my connectivity, I surprised when I'm discussing, is okay, my connectivity is a very high signal, but when their connectivity is very low signal. And then I asked them that, you see, there's something problem in your side. My side is okay. And there are the 2 panelists from the Bangladesh and 2 panelists from the UK. And when they're discussing, they're low signal, but our discussion, our panel, our signal is very high. So when I'm discussing this panel discussion, I could not see any kind of disturbance, because it means that our internet is better than if you compare the UK and USA. So what I said that we have to move forward, and what the Dr. Sheena mentioned about the Professor Abul Kalam, any kind of difficulties and challenges is give some opportunity for us. Exactly. And this is our kind of opportunity. And I believe, you know, I will give some concrete remarks later on, and that I'll mention that at some points. Thank you.
Can I just, if you give me opportunity, just can I raise one point?
Please.
How do you see the process of evaluation One of the attendees has raised this question: how do you see what should be the best method of evaluating the students for the end semester? So it's not just about end semester, but all the semesters. Examination is an issue, cheating and unfair means, and so many things, possibilities are there. So how do we look at those issues?
Thank you so much. Professor, this is it could be our discussion, how we can improve this one. I just share with you, I was involved with the Roentum online learning program in the UK. So there are some of the online Blackboard they're using. So their system is that evaluation is based on the rubrics. So this kind of based on the rubrics, they are coming to the like assessment criteria or something. Still, I believe this is not the like perfection in the evaluation if you compare the first our written evaluation. But I just add the one thing. You can provide the assignment, right? You can take the attendance as well. You can, there is all over the world, especially the MBA level, master's level, there is an option open book exam. Where is the analytical thinking will be the evaluated. So maybe it would be the another avenue that we can think how we can provide this kind of analytical thinking question so that they can think, even the open exam, they don't mind it. And before there is a system, we will post the questionnaire and they can see the questionnaire just before the exam and they can open that exam. And after the exam finish the 1 hour, they have to submit that one through the email or say the any kind of platform. But again, there is some of the questions coming, what you said that in terms of quality, in terms of the assessment criteria, if you compare the written exam. So I think it's another avenue you can discuss how you can improve this one.
Can I add a point?
Please.
Yeah, I was just looking at this from changing ourselves. We are so obsessed with the lines which we draw as only if everybody is able to climb the tree, then we say he is passed. Otherwise, we don't treat every creature, we are trying to treat every creature the same, the flying ones and the creeping ones and the swimming ones. There, my argument is we need to change the way in which we look at evaluation. If I am able to communicate and convince my students about the concepts which they require, both in life skill as well as what they required for the profession. And I say that they have attended, say, 1 year program with an institute. And I'm not going to mark them anything. It may be looking beyond the normal sense. But then if a potential job seeker, job provider looks at him and say that, okay, this person has all that what we need, I'm not worried whether he has 90 plus or minus. I want him because I have evaluated him suitable for me. So this is one extreme way of looking at it. Second thing, the cheating in an examination happens when you are looking at the lower levels, the explained items, what you remember and reproduce. If we can go to a higher level where design, analysis, and things of that kind comes in, but it is going to add a lot of work for the faculty. Hence, there will be a lot of resistance. Even now, online learning, teaching, most of the resistance, as Professor mentioned, is coming from faculty side because it requires a lot of change. And we are obviously have a lot of inertia against the change. And that the change management could be one among the grown-ups, so-called grown-ups, will be an issue even when we come out of COVID and start looking at flipped mode of education. Even if we provide tablets and computers to every learner, we probably the first person to object, I'm not really ready. And this is my input.
I'd just like to add on to Professor Gangadharan. This is one of the common thing what most of the faculties do say, that faculty should be able to adapt, like Professor Gangadharan said, to this particular scenario. That is, we should have more of, like instead of having straight questions, more of cases or discussions, so that we're able to analyze, number one. Number two, with this, we will be able to develop the students far more better and make them understand where they have gone wrong. So I fully agree, but then the workload for the faculty really increases. But uh, to be honest, a faculty should be able to take up such sort of discussions, such sort of assignment, which the purpose for which we are really existing.
So at the outset, I think it is the faculty who would be requiring more training than the students at this juncture.
Not really, not really, but yeah, to an extent, I would say. But actually, I mean, we should change from the traditional mode,
Yes. Yes.
especially like a B school teaching. It should be applied to everywhere, even if it's engineering. Instead of asking straight questions, more application-oriented question when it is asked, the question of cheating doesn't arise. Like Professor Imran was asking if the students cheat. If you're asking an application-oriented question, automatically each person will be writing in a different way. So automatically, in such a case, we will be viewing and grading the students accordingly, and that is what is needed,
Yes.
right, sir?
Professor Nan, I will also take 1 minute.
Sure,
Yes.
sure. Please.
Actually, we are teachers basically, so all that we discussed until now, we became slightly selfish actually. So we were discussing about the teaching and learning only, you know. I have some more points in my mind, and in the light of all discussions that we have listened from the experts, you know, I have few points in my mind that I want to share with you and with their panelists. You know, there are different kinds of videos, different kinds of messages that we are listening, and for the last 2 months, it is happening. Initially, when the COVID came into existence, there was a feeling that when the temperature will go beyond 30, the COVID will go away. And recently, I watched one video. It was about that we should learn to live with the COVID. And more appearance, more painful was when, you know, recently I came to know through a news from China, from some scientists, that the next phase or next cycle of corona will start from the November 2020. You know, already we have not got rid of the first phase. So one thing that is coming to my mind, that there exists considerable uncertainty about the duration and the depth of the crisis. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear. You know, dealing with the after effects of COVID-19 will be a major economic policy challenge all over the next few years. This is a very important thing. And it is now, I think, widely acknowledged that the scale of the economic damage caused by the COVID-19 pandemic will be far greater than the cost by the 2008 global financial crisis, globally as well as for India. So in the light of these feelings that I have, I would like to listen from the panelists that because they are the people from the finance and commerce, I would like to listen from them that what they are looking for, what kind of challenges they are looking for, and how to overcome such kind of economic disasters in the long term.
Thank you, Professor Novali. If you ask this question, in fact, I started by this on supply chain disruption. So definitely there is economical turbulence is there. And it's my personal observation that why the USA, they open their lockdown. But the most of the states, they're planning to open their lockdown. If you look very carefully how the European countries still there in terms of number of days, the 200, 300, 400 people, they open their lockdown. The main reason is economic. So the come to the question is that there is a two side. There is the one side is the health issues, and the second side economical issues. Initially, they planned that health issues, but unfortunately, when they are failed, I use the term they are failed. The USA, they failed, the European countries, they failed to control the COVID-19. And they make plan that if we continue this lockdown, our economic condition will be going down. And there is a question, the phenomenon, maybe the 2 or 3 hours, there's a question will be there is no food condition is coming. To avoid this kind of famine, their plan is better to open that lockdown so that at least the economical, they can get some of the privilege. What I said, it could be happened everywhere in the world. So now, how they can overcome this one? I just make sure give the one scenario so that you can just understand. In our country, now the government, I would use the term not open the lockdown. They're little bit flexible with the lockdown, so that the garments industry in our country, our economical export, the 85% is coming from the garments industry. So the government, they open the garments industry, though the all public and private offices are closed. But government, they open, they give the privilege to open the garments industry. Because what is the 85% is remittance is coming to this one, and the export is based on this one. And in garments industry, we have the 2 million workers, and then directly are working. and then 4 million workers are involved with the backward linkage with the transport and other issues. So if you count the 4 million multiply 4 member in one family, so 16 million people directly relevant to the garments industry. So they open this one, and they're trying to get this.
I will agree with you here, Dr. Mamoon, because today morning I read a news that more than 15 persons were killed. They were traveling from some place, Aurangabad. I mean, some train rammed them actually. So they did not die because of the corona. They died because of the lockdown, because they were coming from by the shortcuts and the train came all over them and they died. I don't know, they are 15, maybe more than that.
Yeah. So,
and, somebody has recently said that the COVID will kill 1,000 persons. The other kind of use will kill millions of people.
Yeah. Yeah, you know that we have no other alternative.
Narendra Modi has said this.
Yeah.
We have a lot of resistance in our bodies, especially when we are living in the
in the same phenomena in the subcontinent. That even I use the one sentence is that we once a time we assume that our political people, our government people, they are not taking care of our people. But
I just want to know what is the status. What is status in Bangladesh? Is there lockdown going on, or some freedom is there?
Lockdown is going on, but some freedom is there. That started the last week. The freedom, the flexibility of the lockdown. So what I said that garments industry open their garments industry, but they have to manage the health issues. And then shopping mall they can open. You know that during the Ramadan there is the Eid, so there's lots of businesses there. But unfortunately, our largest shopping mall, they decided they don't want to open this one because they couldn't control the social distances. So that is the next issue. What I said, even government given the privilege to can open the shopping mall, they are not willing to open this one because they couldn't maintain that social distance and the health issues. If they face any kind of problem, they have to take all responsibility. So they don't want to take the risk. So what I said that we have to balance this one, two things like health issue and economical issue. So
Professor Mamoon, we are almost running short of time. So I would request the panelists to please conclude that what are those major challenges which can be transformed into opportunity or something of that kind? And what could be the possible strategies? Yeah. Because we have almost 6-7 minutes left with us.
Thank you. So I just, my concluding remark will be a few recommendations. The first one, we have to be more optimistic rather than pessimistic thinking. Because our people, I know that our people very well, that this is our own kind of pessimistic thinking all the time. And now this COVID-19 gives some of the masses that all over the world, we have the same phenomena, same problem. So try to be optimistic how we can overcome this one, how we can take this challenge. So that's why we need the mind change. You know, but we are giving the one code, the change management. I believe now is the time we have to, everybody should think about this one, how we can change our mind. If we couldn't change our mind, then we cannot go for the further. When the government gives some of the masses wear the mask, go do some social distancing, most of the people, they think that why you have to do this one. But on the other hand, if you look very carefully, the Donald Trump, the USA, when they say he doesn't want to wear the mask, he doesn't care the social distancing. So that means we are in the subcontinent people, we are the privileged, at least our people, our government, we are thinking how we can overcome this situation. That's why we have to change our mindset, and what I mentioned earlier, the optimistic thinking, we have to move forward, how we can make this challenge to the opportunity. Thank you.
May I comment, sir?
Sure. Sheena, yes, please.
Yes, sir. We were talking about the education sector, so I thought that I would also give my concluding remarks on that. And being in the marketing specialization for some time now, I feel that I'm naturally inclined to design a framework which would explore safe opportunities during such challenging times. So what I feel is that a pragmatic study of our resources. And we have already discussed about the kind of resources that we have. We should be studying about what we have and what is necessary for us and how much should we be increasing them. And this should give us a fair understanding on how far we can stretch our objectives to educate our young population in the present scenario. And what I feel are those points which are relevant right now is, first of all, a thorough analysis of our teachers, the students and the universities at multiple levels. which would reveal the quantum of space for virtual reality in the present educational scenario. Because even today, I feel that we are in a confused state as to what, where, how, where should we be heading to. So let's start right from the beginning, from the base level, and let us try to understand what should be done in that aspect. Secondly, I feel that we should assess the strengths and weakness that could illuminate specific success strategies. Now, just a few minutes ago, the professor was saying that what should we be doing about the evaluation system. Now, that could be unearthing a lot of strengths and weaknesses in the online evaluation system. So that should be a next step that we could be doing. The third one could be a broader understanding of the requirements of our students, which could go a long way in attracting more number of new students, so that there is a full potential of this platform. Because we already know that when other universities, maybe a Western university would be doing a program there, and they would be doing an online program, there are a lot of takers. So why not find out what is the model and then do the same way, do it likewise. And then finally, I feel that an objective evaluation of all this would reveal the number of people connected to the seamless internet connectivity, whether the numbers are expanding or contracting, what are the barriers of entry for our new students, and how suitably are our universities equipped, and what needs to be done more. So these are some of the recommendations which I feel that we could do, which I'm sure cannot be done overnight.
Thank you, Sheena. I would request Rajesh now to please come up with this, and then Professor, Gangadharan can conclude the whole thing. I'm sure, being the very senior and lucid person. Please, Rajesh.
So the first thing said, adaptation. We had to make sure that the faculties as well as students, they're getting adapted. As quick we adapt, only then we would be able to survive in such a scenario. Second main thing is that people are willing to, students are also willing to, but then especially when you take Southeast Asian people, we are bound by emotions. So an emotional support with which they don't feel that they are being isolated, especially the have or have not, like the category you were mentioning about. So once that emotional support is given, they can overcome, ultimately we will be able to get them up. Then make sure that we are able to apply this future in future too, apply this model in future too. So that, on a regular basis, switching on from a slow basis from chalk and board to virtual learning. And finally, technological support, where we can come out with, not in a short span, in a long span, come out with tabs, etc., which is of a low priced, which could help in serving the poorer community, the one you were mentioning. So once
beautiful, Rajesh. Thank you.
It would be. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. Marvelous and very connected thing, and the emotional appeal that you have made is the really pinpoint, which is going to even help in the change management. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Gangadharan, sir.
Yeah. Now, the panelists have looked at quite few wide opportunity coming out of the COVID-19. So we are so good in finding 101 reason for not doing. Let us, in this situation, find one reason to do. So we are so good in finding 101 reason for not doing. Now, this COVID situation should help us in finding one reason to do. So from my final remarks on that is, let us find one reason to do, one reason to change, one reason to get implemented things which we need. Better education, be it universal, much cost effective, at the place of the learner, at the pace of the learner, and at the way they are able to afford. And that includes, if he is lacking food, let us provide. If he is lacking facilities, let us provide. That is one. Let us find this as finding a reason to do, and also gives us how we can get all the lacuna which we normally have forgotten because we never had this crisis. So with this crisis should reveal our weakness, and we should be able to strengthen it. So that is what my feel about the entire COVID situation, because this should be an eye-opener where we identify what is lacking, because it has come with a cost, heavy cost, human cost, but let us open ourselves and find out, and we need to reskill ourselves. we need to reskill ourselves as academicians to be ready for our present generation students, the millennium ones. With that, I am concluding. I should thank Sheena for pursuing me to come to this panel, and because it was she who pursued me, and
So
I
may
feel
I
that
just add one small thing to what Professor Gangadharan just said, just a conclusion to what he said. There is this ant psychology that we always talk about, that we know about. Now, there is something about the ant psychology. Now, this particular philosopher by name Jim Rohn has said that ants never quit. And they think winter all summer, they think summer all winter, and they finally do all that they can. So at this point of time, we should be like an ant. And we should win, and we will win this time too. That is for sure. And with the help of our COVID barriers, the masks, the sanitizers, the gloves, and keeping a safe social distance, we will win over this. We win over this pandemic, this challenge again. So let us all adapt to the current situation and be happy and safe.
Thank you all the panelists. Before we close, I would just like to address 1-2 questions being raised by the attendees. The first one is about the fee, and let me make it clear that panel is not to decide the fee structures and other things. That is a question to be responded by the government and the policy makers. Second thing is, online teaching, as far as I could see it, is not going to replace the classroom instructions. It is a crisis hour, and we have no choice but to depend online. But ultimately, we have to have at the most a mix of the two. Then third thing is about addressing the have-not section, and I think Rajesh has extremely addressed it very well, that it is basically the technocrats who have to come forward to producing low-cost technology so that it would be made available and accessible to all. And secondly, of course, as Gangadharan has earlier said, that government will have to evolve measures to come up and involve the have-not section of the society. Okay, thank you everyone.